So self-awareness, there's an internal and external piece. Like I said, there's knowing yourself, and then there's knowing how other people view you or how you are impacting other people. So for the internal, I put this here because I wanted you all to walk away with some things you can try, some exercises you can try and work on. And I took these from the EQ Edge Emotional Intelligence and Your Success book, which is the basis of the assessment that I give. And so here's one, right? And you can come back to this and you can create your own spreadsheet or journal for it. But each day, write down the strongest emotion that you experienced. And then what are the physical sensations that go along with that? Because what you'll find, it's really interesting, what you'll find is that there are different physical sensations for different emotions. And oftentimes, you will feel those before you know what your emotion is. So what we're trying to do is kind of back up a little bit, right? Figuring out, sensing when that emotion is coming and having a gap there so that you can stop and say, is this how I want to experience this situation right now or present myself right now? Right? I know, it's amazing. I would love for everyone, if you could do this and think about, like, it's amazing because a lot of people, and you'll sense your feelings in a different way than I sense my feelings, but I think we all know what butterflies in your stomach are like, or like, I don't know, the last time you had to slam on the brakes on your car, right? What was that? Just, you get this flood. I do. I would call it a flood of just, whew. And then there are thoughts that accompany this, right? So if you back up even further, before you even get to the physical sensations, you have thoughts. And what are those thoughts? And it might be, Bob just said that to make me angry. Did he? I don't know. But why am I thinking that, and why am I blaming Bob for that? So what are those thoughts? And then it's, how did you become aware of the emotion? When did you actually notice the physical changes? It might be after the fact, right? It might be as you're writing it in your journal and saying, oh, yeah, I guess that came and went. And then what could you do to change the emotion in the future? Assuming it's when you want to change. I mean, depends on the situation. And that might be thinking of, what are those thoughts that we need to change? So then the external piece, right? We're talking about internal and external. The external piece is seeking feedback. How are you going to know how you're coming across to people? How you're impacting people? Well, one way is to ask. And these are just some tips on how to go about that, right? If you're talking about your direct reports, there are more steps here. There are more pieces to that, because you want to really get feedback from them, and it becomes harder as you rise through the ranks of leadership. So, find people you respect. You don't want somebody just saying, you're just so great. That's not what you're there for. You want real feedback. As you're getting it, listen. Trying to understand what they're telling you and thank them sincerely. And another piece, if you are in leadership, don't ever punish someone for giving you that feedback. You're not going to get it again from any of your reports. And I know feedback is hard. Feedback can be hard anyway, but article after article say successful leaders ask for feedback regularly, and they get it and they act on it. So I'm talking, I'm not seeing anything in the chat. I just want to take a break here and see if we have any questions or thoughts. Okay.
Yeah, I will definitely I'm keeping an eye on the chat function, but as you're walking through this, I'm definitely resonating with this sense of physical emotions. I think even yesterday, I had a really tough meeting with the leadership with the top leadership at one of our clients. And I felt they had really given me one message early on in the project, and then all of a sudden what we were doing was really coming under criticism. And this meeting was like a regroup, right? Like, let's get our issues out on the table. And coming into that meeting, I felt sick to my stomach, and I felt like the pounding of the blood in my ears, like a sinus headache coming on. And it was so much like I was frustrated and a little bit angry, and I was sad because, of course, I want the client to be happy. But I think overwhelmingly, the physical sensation was one of nerves. Like even after 20 plus years of working in sustainability, like I'm at the top of my game right now,
Yeah.
and yet still feeling like imposter syndrome. Like, who am I to come in and tell this company how to do sustainability right? And I really had to sort of step back and say, like, that's why they came and hired us. Right? Like, that is it, like really going back and trying to tease out the difference between nerves that like just tough conversations are hard, right? Acknowledging that, but then teasing out that innate sense of inferiority that I think people feel all the time, all the way through their careers. And especially if you are from a marginalized community, right? Like I think women sometimes are more likely to self-criticize or feel like they don't belong in the room. I think racial minorities sometimes feel that way as well. But I think it was so valuable for me. Like it was like 30 seconds before everyone jumped on that Zoom. I figured out like this is two different things happening at the same time.
Whoa.
And I can put aside the imposter syndrome. Like I know I belong here. Yeah, still some nerves sat there because it was going to be a tough conversation. But like once I recognized that imposter syndrome feeling was there, I could be like, oh, I can put that part aside. That does not need to be part of this conversation.
Right.
And the meeting went so much better once I was in that frame of mind.
That is great. And so cool that you kind of thought that through in the moment almost, right? Like, what's happening here?
Yeah. Because of course, my first thought was like, oh my God, am I going to throw up? It was just an overwhelming physical sensation of like anxiety, like the nervousness of like not feeling safe in your own body, which is such a weird thing. And it's frustrating, but also I think comforting to know that that's just a thing our bodies do, right? It really is not a reflection of reality, right? To be able to separate out what is real versus what is your perception of what's happening,
Right.
I think can be really helpful in giving yourself confidence and also really pinpointing where do you have control and where do you have that influence.
Yes. Well, and like you were saying, it's not reality. It's your perception of reality because you're telling yourself things there for a minute that cause that nausea, right? Like, I don't belong here, or what am I doing here? And you're like, wait a minute, get out of there. Those thoughts.
And really, and I think also sort of stepping out that like, was anger, like the anger and the frustration I was feeling, I think that was just a front for my fear, right? It was, I was worried like, oh, maybe we've done this wrong. Maybe I have made a mistake. Maybe I have misstepped. Maybe I have directed my team incorrectly. And that like being able to identify the anxiety and the fear part made the anger and the frustration go away, right? It was like a domino effect that like dealing, or not even dealing with, just identifying the root feeling behind it addressed all of those other sort of downstream emotions and physical sensations as well, which I think, you know, the more I can tap into that, the better I am. And it's really funny. My team says I'm really, really, really good at getting people where they need to, like getting people what they need to do, like convincing them of my opinion. But I think a lot of it is really exactly what you said about this empathy, like learning and really deep listening to understand someone's values and their position. If I can connect sustainability to some aspect of what they value, right? Is it that the CEO wants to be powerful? Is it that he wants to be seen as a good leader by his employees? Is it that he really wants money, right? Like whatever that motivation is, but sometimes it's not front and center. Sometimes you really got to dig to find out what is the other person really wanting, both tangible, but also like what's the feeling that they want to have.
Yeah.
It's just, I think the self-awareness is, you know, you can sort of flip that and start applying that to the other people in the room. And I think that makes the circle of influence so powerful.
I think you're right. And it's interesting because when you were saying, well, how does that person want to feel? You know, part of it is like everybody wants to feel like they're part of some community, right? Or something like, and maybe that person wants to be part of the top performing CEOs, or maybe it's part of the green companies. And if you can say, this is how you get to be part of that community, and I'm in that community too, right? Let's be in the same community, then that can help connect too.